Welcome to the Let's Talk Filmmaking podcast, where we talk about everything filmmaking and creative. This is a very special episode. I had the opportunity to talk to Lawrence Jordan, a veteran motion picture film editor that has worked on many films and many TV series. Films like Marlon Wayans' recent Netflix movie, Sextuplets, Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo, CSI Miami, NYPD, many shows. This man has edited in the film industry for a very long time, so if you're interested in learning how to edit films or television series, this is the episode for you. Welcome everybody. I have a very special guest, as I just said in the intro. I have Mr. Lawrence Jordan. Now, if you do not know who this is, you need to, especially if you're an editor. I'm not an editor, but I edit a lot and I love the film industry, and therefore this is a very big deal for me, and this can be should be a very big deal for you. Lawrence, kind of give people background of who you are, and kind of like just in a nutshell, you just did the Marlon Wayans Sextuplets. I want to make sure I was like, Sextuplets? Can I say that? Sextuplets. But that's like one of the most recent things you've done. You've done a lot of great work. Kind of give people in a nutshell, like, your background and some of the stuff you've done.
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm an editor, and I've been an editor for a long time. Like you said, I just did most recently Sextuplets with Marlon Wayans and director Mike Titus for Netflix. It's the second Netflix film we all did together. The first one was called Naked, and I've been with those guys for the last 3 films that I've cut. It's been a lot of fun. They're a great group, and they keep hiring me, so I'm not going to turn them down.
Right.
Yeah, right. But I started really young. I was 19 years old. All I wanted to do was make movies, and I started out driving a truck and being a PA and dropping off film cameras for a camera company at first, and then I answered phones at an editorial rental house for a while, and then I got a job with a trailer company, and I started learning editing on film. And did that job for a couple of years, and got in the union, which was really important because I wanted to work on feature films. And then I got a chance to be like a schlepper, again, a PA. Well, actually, it was called apprentice editor at the time, on a film called Terms of Endearment, which was really cool. And just kind of worked my way up from there. I mean, I worked my way up to assistant editor, then a first assistant editor, then associate editor, then additional editor. And that's kind of like the way it is. It's like you have to work your way up through the ranks in Hollywood to become an editor. But I always kept my focus. Even after being an assistant for 10 years, I was ready to make the jump. I was in my early 30s. And what happened was film went away and digital editing came along. And, I saw the writing on the wall. I saw those green moviolas being dinosaurs, and they weren't going to be used much longer.
Yeah.
So I was one of the first guys to learn the Avid, the Media Composer, the first digital editing system.
Oh, yeah.
And I became kind of an expert at it. I really immersed myself for almost a year learning the Mac, which Avid was based on at the time only. And, I became the guy. And as fate would have it, I got lucky. And Stephen Bochco Productions, the guys who produced Hill Street Blues and L.A. Law and a lot of famous TV shows back in the 80s and 90s, they needed some people to work on the Avid because they were converting over. They were one of the first episodic television series, network television series, to cut digitally. And they heard about me through the grapevine, and I got the job, and I stayed there all hours and proved my worth. And they gave me a shot, and that's how I really started editing in TV. And then I was working on a TV show that didn't run very long for the first season that I worked with them, and they liked my work so much they asked me to cut the pilot for a TV show called NYPD Blue, and that was a pretty big one. That got nominated for like 26 Emmys the first season. I got nominated for an Emmy Award, an Eddie Award, and
Wow.
I was off and running, man. I just right place, right time.
Mm-hmm.
Loved editing, understood digital technology, and yeah, I went on. I cut some more features after that. Cut a little one for Kiefer Sutherland, and then I got asked by the guy who hired me on NYPD Blue to do his feature, Greg Hoblet, great director. Asked me to do Fallen with him and Denzel Washington, which was a real honor. I was a young guy, and I was like, whoa, this is fantastic. So we went to Philly for a few months, and we shot it there, and we finished it, and and then I just kept rolling. It was freelance life, so it wasn't always easy. Isn't always easy.
Oh yeah, especially editing.
Yeah, you get your busy times, your feast and famine, but I stuck it out. A little bit later, I got offered a job as an additional editor with a great editor. His name was George Bowers. He was actually a director also. He asked me to come on as an additional editor on Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo with Adam Sandler and Rob Schneider. Yeah. And after that, my career kind of took like a hard left turn into comedy. And I got known as the comedy guy. So I started cutting a lot of comedies, and I just wanted to keep working. I had a mortgage by that time and two kids, and I just and the jobs were good, and the people were nice, and we had fun. I mean, it was crazy.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. So went on. I did a film called Are We There Yet with Ice Cube, and a couple of other things here and there. And then I fell in with Marlon and his crew, and here I am. That's it in a nutshell.
Man, look. First of all, that's a bunch of great information. I really love like the way you got into it. The last episode I spoke to is I know a young filmmaker named Egan. He is in Florida. He's actually moving soon to Columbia. He is 20 and he has just done a documentary.
Wow.
Yeah. Like the way technology is, I know it's very much it started different. I even said if they were doing film the way they did back in the day with actual tape, I would not be doing it.
No, honestly, I didn't like videotape at all. I was a film guy, and that's how I came up. And videotape really scared me because it had to do with like numbers, and you couldn't just tear it apart. You had to you had to record over things and stuff, and
very critical.
Yeah, I was just like that. That's not for me. And so I stuck with film, and I was hoping film would last forever. But then digital came along, and I was really good with computers, and I really enjoyed working on computers. And I just, it was just virtual film. You could move stuff around. You can make 100 different versions without having to send it out to a laboratory to make a 35 millimeter duplicate. So yeah, I found my place, and along the way, because I love technology, I really I was into the web, and the web was just kind of like coming into its own, starting out, and I created a site called tupop.com, which was one of the first Final Cut Pro sites ever, and it took off. We created a big community. I became a consultant for Apple. I was helping them design the software. And, so I did that in between my editing gigs. And that was a lot of fun. And I continued to enjoy working on websites. I don't know if you know, but I created a course called Master the Workflow. Which,
yes, and I definitely want to talk about that.
Yeah, we train assistant editors, online. And, we've had a lot of success with that. So, I'm a freelance creative.
You have to.
Yeah. So
you have to.
And you got to have a couple of streams of income.
Yes.
Because you got to keep that mortgage paid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want to get to so one thing that made you stick out was you said you already knew you was already great at computers. So that transition to digital, you had a great lead start on that. Nowadays, we're getting a lot more alternatives to Avid. Like we have Premiere, there's Hit Film. Da Vinci is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's a lot of other ones. And now there's just a spread. But I know film is still Avid is still like top dog. At least in my opinion, Avid is still top dog. I was the editor for 4 years at a news station, so I had the privilege of using Avid um, every day and learning the in and outs. And boy, can I say it takes so many steps to do kind of like the simplest things, but the way the interface is, and I also learned Pro Tools as well in
Wow.
college. So knowing those two things, I can see why for film Avid, I would much prefer to edit a film in Avid than in something like Premiere. Uh,
Well, Premiere is really kind of is really coming into its own right now. Also, a lot of people still use Final Cut, but having said that, for long form scripted feature films and television, yes, Avid is top dog. It's the most widely used program in the professional market, whether it be in Hollywood or New York or LA or London. Uh, Film editors who transitioned from film learned the Avid, so that first generation, are really attached to it. However, we've got a whole new generation of editors coming up, and a lot of them, they were trained on Premiere, they were trained on
right,
Final Cut Pro. So, Avid has to, stay competitive. They've just released a new version of their software, which I think attempts to do that. But I think you're right. You kind of got to know all the tools. Along the way, I learned After Effects and Premiere, and some of the visual effects tools that become very useful in today's filmmaking environment. Because, geez, as is evidenced by sextuplets, almost every film nowadays is a visual effects film. You know what I mean?
right. And that was another thing. Like when you was editing sextuplets, kind of get tell me the process of the post production of, because Marlon is playing like what, six characters, kind of like what Nutty Professor did back in the day with well
Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy did in the Nutty
Yeah.
Professor. Of course, that was a different style, but like, how is it different? You know,
Well, good question, and that's one of the things that the director Mike Titus really wanted to do, was to make it different, utilize the new technologies that have evolved since the time of Nutty Professor. One of them, the most primary tool, was called the Techno Dolly, and the Techno Dolly is a motion control dolly and rigging system that can repeat moves. So Mike was able to move the camera a lot in shots, so it didn't seem so static, and you weren't just doing a split screen or cutting back and forth from one character to the next. You had 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 characters, all played by Marlon in single shots. So, we think that helped to make the film unique, but it also presented like an incredible set of editorial challenges that we had to kind of become experts at. And along with my visual effects editor, Jose Mara, who's, brilliant and creative and not only technical, but a storyteller, we were able to do that. There was a learning curve, no question about it. But once we kind of got over the hump, it was just a ton of fun. And to think of all the things you can do with visual effects, I mean, I'm talking about not just, having another person in there playing, the same person in there playing a different character, but, using an arm movement from a different take, or, an eye movement or a head movement. I mean, we placed, one of the characters was called Baby Pete, and he was a little guy, and we put Marlon's head on a body double. And so we were doing some crazy stuff. we had almost 1,000 visual effects shots in the film, and
Ah,
I mean, you think about it. This wasn't an Avengers movie. This wasn't a Pixar movie. This was just a straight up comedy
I
with
think
almost 1,000 visual effects.
yeah. I'm about to say I would think this would take. I would think this would take longer than a Avengers movie in some way in terms of getting those shots precise and also just the editing.
Yeah, well, and I haven't even mentioned that because it was an improv comedy, and you probably have a
Right.
little bit of knowledge about improv. Marlon would do a joke, and he'd do it two or three different ways, and he'd read it four or five different ways, and
Exactly.
he'd be cutting all that stuff together, trying to figure out what was the funniest way to go about it. And indeed, the schedule as it was initially created did not leave enough time to do the show in the time allotted. So we actually pushed the schedule twice and ended up cutting it for almost 11 months, almost a whole year. And we it was tight at the end, but we did it. And I had a big crew at a certain point. We had a lot of people on, and that's what you need. You need a lot of people, all doing specific tasks, and focusing on the end game. And that's what we do when we edit a movie. We saddle up and do what it takes.
Yeah, because I know just how Marlon is like with especially with his improv and just him going off, and it seems like it's just so natural to him. He probably doesn't even remember half of the stuff that he does. So
Yeah, he takes the script as kind of like a blueprint, and then he
mhm.
just riffs off there, man. He's like a jazz comedian.
He is. He's off the
Yeah,
wall. But
yeah, he's
that's
fun. And I mean, there'd be time, but that's what makes it fun. I'm sitting there watching
exactly.
it times, and I'm like almost crying because I'm laughing so hard, and I'm just thinking, how are we going to get all this in the movie?
You're laughing because man, this was funny. Now you're laughing. It's like, how am I gonna piece this together and make it work? Well,
Exactly.
like okay, so there's one thing about let's talk filmmaking. I do try to help people learn the secrets that people naturally wouldn't know. I didn't learn probably until like 4 months ago that if you really want to get into TV or film, you need to be part of a guild.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, because I'm in Louisiana, Shreveport. The nearest thing I'm close to is New Orleans, uh,
Right.
and so like, and there's so many guilds that you have to like, okay, what do I want to even be a part of? Now
Right.
you mentioned the course that you have, and I really want to touch on that because I think it's a wonderful thing and it's a great way to help people figure out is this what I want to do or is
Yeah.
this do I have I don't like to say the skills because you can learn the skills. Do I have the drive to do this and keep going with it?
You're absolutely right, man. I mean, because anybody can learn the skills, but having the passion, like
Passion, yes.
I was sitting in the theater when I was 19 years old, and I watched a film called Apocalypse Now at the Cinerama Dome at the midnight show, and
Uh-huh.
it was a packed crowd, and it was in widescreen, and I was just like, that's what I want to do, man. I want to make movies, I want to edit movies, and I want to be able to move people and have them experience, have these experiences. So you've got to have that passion for filmmaking because I'll tell you something. Again, you can learn the skills, but it's a hard road. It's
It
a hard.
is.
There's a lot of competition, and if you don't want to do it, somebody else will. So you got to be committed. It's not like a 9 to 5 job. It's the freelance life. It's a little bit like I guess what people who used to travel with the circus used to feel.
And it's quite lonely at times too.
It can get lonely when you're looking for work and nobody's calling you back. But it's a certain. I think that a lot of people who become editors or other crafts, whether it be cinematographers or costume designers, production designers, they've just got something in them that says, that's what I want to do, and I'm going to do, and I'm going to work as hard and be as focused as possible to do that. So Yes, to answer your question, getting in the guild is important because the film industry is a guild-based industry. You know, the IATSE, the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees,
Hmm.
which is a good thing. Yeah, you can work non-union, but
It's hard.
you don't have the protections that you get as a a union member. We get health benefits. Because I got into it early. Thank goodness I've had health benefits my whole life, and that's an important thing in this day and age. And you don't get that from a lot of employees. You don't get it from non-union shows. I mean, you're on that for maybe whatever 4, 6, 8 months, and then you're off and you're on your own again. So the guild, has wage guarantees and pension guarantees. Uh, it's much easier. Having said that, it's much easier to get in the guild, the Editors Guild these days, than it was when I started. Basically it was a closed shop, and now you just need 100 days of pay stubs as an assistant editor. It can be on a non-union film. A lot of people, or TV show, a lot of people get it through reality TV out here. And then you go to the union and you show them your pay stubs and you fill out an application and you pay your dues and you're in. So, yeah, that's pretty critical. It's an important component. But I spoke at an event just the other night, and I met 2 or 3 young people who just got in the union, and they did what it took, and they're in. So once that's over, then again, you're guaranteed a wage. Assistant editors, make right around $2,000 a week. So that's a nice wage for all your hard work and sweat and grinding
Yeah.
for a PA or a truck driver or whatever you were doing to get to assistant editing.
Right. Because it is work. Like, I think that's one thing people do forget, that, yeah, we are doing things we love, but oh my God, it's a lot of work, especially freelancing. Like, you're doing so much yourself. So, kind of tell me, what does your course, which I have here,
Master the workflow.
Master the Workflow.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, because the film crafts have traditionally been kind of like a closed shop, an old boys network.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was, it was really tough to learn, those crafts. And yeah, you could go to film school, no question about it, and you could pick up some of the skills. But a lot of the things that are taught in film schools are pretty, theoretical. Let's say,
Right.
even if you can get your hands on and maybe do some editing. A lot of times that doesn't come until you're in maybe an advanced program like a master's degree or something.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, even if you've gone through those programs, what it's like to work in a real world environment in Hollywood on a feature or a television show, it's a totally different animal, So, and that's not really taught anywhere. So my former assistant and I, Richard Sanchez, who we worked together on Naked, we came up with this idea that, it would be really great to help people get started and to, learn the skills, and not just the technical skills, but the diplomatic skills you need to learn to work with creative bosses and partners and stuff like that. Because, that can be tricky also. They don't necessarily want your opinion all the time, or if they do want your opinion,
Yeah.
they want you to lie to them, but they don't know they want you to lie to them.
Yeah.
It's a like any job. It's you got to learn how to navigate the politics of things.
Mm-hmm.
So so we teach everything. Well, let me backtrack a minute. I mean, I look at editing as a technical, a creative, and a political craft. You've got to have all 3 sides of that triangle.
Great way to put it.
And that's what we do. We take people from, pre-production. What does the assistant editor do in pre-production? What does the editor do in pre-production? And what are the meetings that you take? And who are the people that you have to meet, like, the first week of the film, or maybe even before the first week of the film? Meeting with your editor. What's the best way to, sort of like meet their needs and see that help them see that you're the best person for the job. And so we start there, and then we go through the process, man, from like first day of dailies, how to deal with dailies, how to deal with different kinds of dailies, whether it's sunk by the lab or whether they're making you sink it yourself. What do you do when you encounter problems? All the way through the editor's cut, the director's cut, the sound turnovers, the picture turnovers, visual effects turnovers, the DI, digital intermediate, the mix. And then, of course, there's deliverables and finishing. The studios now have fairly strict, or not maybe not strict, but fairly standardized delivery requirements. Thank you. That they require you to give them, because they could be releasing the film in the theaters, in streaming. And streaming could be like, it could be in a whole different variety of formats.
Yeah.
And so, again, we take you through the whole enchilada. We also have a private students-only Facebook community where we answer questions, and Richard's available to solve technical issues and maybe work-related job issues. And we've created a nice little community, man. We've put over 400 people through the course in the 2 years we've been doing it, in over 40 countries. So,
wow.
Much to our surprise, there's a lot more people out there in a lot more places that want to be film editors than you might imagine. Yeah, it's a small niche, but like you were saying, nowadays people are learning editing in elementary school.
They are.
On iMovie, on Premiere.
Yes,
and
simple apps on their phones.
Yeah, so you've got these people coming in, and they've got this much, much greater fundamental knowledge than anybody from when I started. So it's an exciting time, and there's a lot of people who want to be in the craft, and I'm just really glad to help out. It's sort of a passion of mine. I've been a teacher at AFI and UCLA Extension, and I just see this as kind of a continuation of that.
Yeah, I can honestly say, me being a filmmaker, I do not. Unless it's a passion project, I'll edit my own passion projects. But like some of just my client work, I'm like, I gotta edit that thing. I would much rather just have an editor that loves to edit and do it. And I hear that so often. And some people are scared to pull the trigger on that because they're like control freaks of this is my baby. I can't trust anybody to edit the way I wanted to edit. But I also hear a lot where they say you'd be surprised what you will see people that love editing way more than you do can do with your project. So like that's one of the beautiful things about working with an editor, an experienced editor, is they'll bring a totally fresh perspective to the project, and they'll often see things that you haven't seen or you were too busy on set to see. Right. We go for little pieces, man. We'll find like little reaction shots, little nuggets of gold. And that's what we're trained to do. So I respect people who want to cut their own films. I think they're a little crazy because it's a whole lot of. But if you're on a passion project and you got the time, if you have the time,
and
if you don't have 20, 30 other things you already have to do, so
and you can afford it. That's great, man. Editing is a great craft, and you disappear into the zone when you edit. You know what I mean? It's like you lose track of time, and you turn around and whoa, it's 6 o'clock and I haven't had lunch yet. And that's a real gift in this life. A lot of people, they go to work and they're looking at the clock, just wondering when they're going to have to get to punch out. And we don't experience that often as editors. We're too immersed in the flow, in the process, which is like I say, I feel it's a really great gift.
I totally agree. So, like, going back to your course, how can people uh, find it? Where does it have where can they access it?
It's pretty straightforward. It's called mastertheworkflow.com. We're online. The course is 100% online. So people who do have other kinds of work or jobs can do it at their own pace. Once you enroll as a student, you're a student of that course for life. You have access to the materials and the private Facebook group. We also provide Richard's custom-made FileMaker Pro database, which he's used on a number of films, including Naked, and just recently he did Catch 22 for George Clooney, and who produced that for Hulu. It's got a comprehensive set of tools which help you track every piece of metadata and information that is part of the filmmaking process. And like I said, that's a critical element these days. I mean, a big part of the assistant's job is data wrangler, because we're dealing with material from all kinds of different places, all different sources. Visual effects can get very complex. I mean, on sextuplets, we had 7, 8, 10 layer visual effects, and you got to be able to communicate that with the visual effects department. And the digital code book is what we call it. The FileMaker Pro database is a tool that helps assistant do that in a really efficient way. And then when you're all done, you just turn that database over to the studio as part of your delivery requirements, and it's all done. You're good. So come to mastertheworkflow.com. Check out. We have some free materials there you can download to kind of find out what we're about. And if you have any questions, just shoot us an email, info@mastertheworkflow.com. And we're also starting to, I'm in the process of putting together some YouTube videos, which will give people some more information on, some of the skills we teach and some of the requirements that, help you become an assistant film editor, which is traditionally the best way to become an editor in Hollywood and features and TV. So yeah, check us out, mastertheworkflow.com.
So, quick question: that everything you said turning into the studio, would this be enough to become to get into a editor's guild? The work that's inside.
Well, it teaches you the skills that you need to work in a union cutting room. That's for sure. But having said that, you still have to get your 100 days on a non-union picture working as an assistant editor. And like I said, people can do it in a trailer company. People can do it in a promo company. A lot of people do it in reality TV, commercial companies. All you have to do is show that you've been paid for about 100 days, which is what, about 3.5 months, and then you can get in. But if you're taking the course, the set of skills that we teach is specific for scripted features and TV. It's a whole different set of skills that you're going to need for, let's say, cutting trailers or cutting reality or cutting commercials. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. Which brings me to another question. For the freelancers that are, have their own businesses that shoot commercials for, I guess, small town businesses, would that count into their hours, or does it have to be like a marketing company or a production company that are doing it for, like, I guess either the same small town or a bigger, doing it for a bigger entity?
I tell you something. I'm not absolutely positive about that. I think there's some gray area. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think that the organization that sort of like gets you on something called the roster, which is like the union roster. You can get on it before you get in or like as you're getting in the union to say that you're qualified. I'm not sure. You would have to check with them, but
I would definitely have to look into that, because that's nowadays that's what some people are doing, because with this becoming a more and more of an entrepreneur, society, a lot
Yeah.
of people my age are having their own, companies. They're doing commercials for people, but if they want to be in the guild, okay, now they have to think about it. Do I want to continue on this road of entrepreneur and that be my main uh, uh, income and just my main thing I do every day, or do I want to temporarily work at a production company, and work, do other people projects that don't have my name included, and unless you work for an awesome place that will put your
Yeah.
name on
Yeah.
there. So that's why I asked that question, because that does um, bring me to that, because I'm interested in the photographers guild, the DP guild. So that's something
Yeah.
that I will be looking into. But I know I will have to work on certain sets to get that.
Yeah, and the Photographers Guild cinematographers have a different set of requirements. So I would definitely check with those guys to see what they require to join the guild.
Okay, cool, cool. I know. We have little time, but I have a couple more questions. Well, that question is: if you were to start over,
Yeah.
what would you be using? If somebody is just starting, they want to edit, what do you think they will need to really get started? Like what editing system you would say to try? What equipment?
Well, if you want to get work in Hollywood or any of the major film centers around the world, I still say learn the Avid. It's used on probably 95% of all major films and television shows. So I would be remiss if I didn't tell you to go out and learn that system. Yeah, it's a little different, but honestly, I mean, young people. Oh no.
But
Sorry.
no, you're fine. Y'all teach Avid in the course or go over it as well.
Yes, yes. The course is taught on the Avid. However, a lot of these skills can transfer to Premiere and to a lesser extent Final Cut.
Right.
Not sure about DaVinci because I just haven't used it enough. I know that they came up with a new release which has got some new features, but yeah, primarily on the Avid. Definitely can apply those skills to Premiere. And a lot of stuff is being done in Premiere now. I mean, Adobe's making a strong push for the Hollywood market, and it's great. I love Premiere. I'm cutting in it right now on a small project. The big differences are network storage and network sharing of projects across a lot of people.
That
And Avid has that really nailed down.
Yes,
They
they do.
really have that. It's kind of bulletproof. So again, is a big trust factor for studios and when they're putting a lot of money into something. So yeah, I'd say learn the Avid and then learn as many other tools as you can. Premiere, After Effects, Photoshop. You should have some kind of skills at. You should learn FileMaker Pro. Learn how to manage a database, and those are the kinds of things that I think a person starting out now it would do them a lot of good. But do everything. I mean, look at YouTube these days. There's some fantastic filmmakers on YouTube,
They are.
and make your own films. Even if you're going to be trying to get work as an assistant editor to work your way up the ranks, make your own little films and do your own little editing, projects. Those kinds of things are going to do nothing but help you. Because you're practicing your skills, and they're going to come in handy. You're going to be solving problems that you're going to be solving in the real world. You know what I mean? And that's what editing is.
Boy.
We're problem solvers.
Yes, problem solving is probably like 70% of what you'll be doing in this industry.
Right.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. I will have all the links down below with the course. Where they can find information just on you, just to follow you and your road.
Oh, well, you could, the About page at Master of the Workflow has a little bit of a bio on me, but, there's a pretty cool little video that someone made. Sven Pape has a YouTube channel called This Guy Edits. and I can send you the link on that. He just did a little I don't think it's 16, 17-minute video on the process of editing sextuplets. And you can check out my IMDb page. It's got all my credits there. Learn a little bit more about me, and I'm around. You can just shoot me an email for sakes.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about the people that are going to be listening. Like, do you have like an Instagram or I know you have Facebook because you have a group.
Yeah. Master Workflow has both a public Facebook group. We've got almost 3,000 people, in our community there, and then the private students only Facebook group has about 400 some odd people there. On Instagram at Master Workflow. We're also on Twitter at Workflow. We're all over social media, and Master Workflow is also on YouTube. We don't have that much right now. We got 5 or 6 videos up there, but we're in the process of churning out some more.
Hey, use all them editors you got to push out as much videos as possible. Well, look, hey,
you're talking to him.
yeah. Hey, look, Lawrence, I'm very excited. I got a chance to talk to you. I think what you're doing is very amazing and inspiring. Definitely, I will email you and keep in touch. And hey, I definitely would love to have you back on the show when you edit more, do more projects.
Hey, thank you so much, man. I admire what you're doing. I think that's, it shows a lot of initiative, and I wish you the best of luck. And it's been a pleasure talking to you, man.
All right, bye. Everybody, this is Lawrence Jordan. I'm gonna have the links below to all his socials and his course that I definitely think you should check out, because I'm a part of a lot of groups, but not a lot of them actually tackle Avid. And in a lot of earlier shows, I do talk about how Avid is that editing system where it's like people don't want to touch it, but look, you just heard it. Like, if you want to be editing and film television, it has to be something you have to be, have some knowledge. It's not that hard, It looks weird, but it's not that hard. It looks weird, but it's not that hard.
You can do it.
I will see you all in the next episode. Until then, see ya.